I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. Today's session is more advanced than perhaps some of our previous sessions, and we will focus on how to select complex geographies on data.census.gov, our new data platform. So we will not be covering the topic of geographies overall. Instead, we will show you how to select complex geographies on data.census.gov. Okay, now moving on, and this is very important, if you have chosen to stream the audio of today's call via your computer, meaning if you did not dial in using your telephone, you will not be able to queue up to ask questions via the phone line when we open it up later. The audio streaming link that you used is a one-way audio option only. So if you would like to ask a question via the phone line, we encourage you to dial in with the telephone number and passcode, and we will be providing that in the chat a couple of times for your convenience. So a lot of you may choose to stream the audio through your computers, which is, of course, perfectly fine. However, this means that we are anticipating a high number of questions that are going to come in via the chat. This, of course, means that we may not have an opportunity to get to all of the questions, but we will be providing you contact information so you can reach out to us if we are unable to answer your question during the webinar event. As always, we are recording this webinar, and along with the supporting materials, including the transcript and the slide deck, this is all going to be posted on the Census Academy Training Hub site. We will be sure to send that link via the chat, so please keep your eyes out for that. And with that, once again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we truly hope that you enjoy the training. Now I would like to leave you in the very capable hands of our presenter, Tyson Weister. Thank you, Tyson.
Great. Thanks, Deb, and thank you all so much for joining the webinar today, Mastering Complex Geographies on data.census.gov. My name is Tyson. I work on the communications team for our centralized data dissemination, which includes data.census.gov, the API, as well as our microdata access. For today, we are going to focus on, as Deb mentioned, the complex geography. So what we have planned is a brief introduction, and what's going to take up the core of the time today are tips and tricks, followed by a demonstration on the live site. So there are 4 different scenarios that we're going to walk through. For complex geographies, we're going to give some tips, show those on the screen, and then go to the live site to show them in action so you can use them when you walk out of the training today. You'll be able to do things like turn on the summary level toggle and find which geographies are available for a data set, use the geographic components toggle, mapping, collections of geographies, and some tips and tricks to help sort out all of the available information in a more meaningful way. We'll open it up for common questions that we'll run through, and then we'll give you all a chance to ask your question. So to go ahead and get started, if you're joining the call, hopefully you are already familiar with data.census.gov. As a reminder, everything on the site is powered in real time by the application programming interface. So this is what it shows you on the left-hand side. The API is at the heart of everything we're doing. What that means is as you navigate through the site, all of the data, tables, charts, maps, it's all being pulled in real time in order to feed that information on your screen in a user-friendly way. This also includes some sections of the filtering options in the geography filter. So we're going to show later on in the training how you can leverage that to your advantage. When we work through the geography filters today, there are a wide variety of types of geographic areas that you can access data for. This diagram shows you some of the more common areas as well as relationships between them. So you get the nation at the top, followed by smaller level geographies such as the census blocks, block groups, and census tracts as the lowest level. Census blocks are the building blocks for all of the census geography types, and what this chart shows you are the relationships in between them. So any geography that's connected by a direct line is neatly nested within the higher level geography. So as an example, you can see congressional districts has a line going up to state. That means that congressional districts always fall within state boundaries. They won't ever cross a state boundary, but it doesn't necessarily have any other relationship to areas that don't have a direct line. So it may or may not follow boundaries for other areas like places, counties, or zip code tabulation areas. Again, these are some of the more common different types of geographies. There are about 250 different summary levels or geographic types that you can select on data.census.gov. In order to select them and get data, not all data sets do provide data for each summary level. Most of them are provided through the decennial census, and a large amount being provided through the American Community Survey. So do keep in mind there's about 250, but they're not available for all data sets. We're actually going to dig into that a little bit deeper here with our first example. So let's show you some tips and tricks for working with geographies that fall partially within other geographies. So by this, we're referring to these as within geographies for the purpose of this webinar. Through data.census.gov, you can access data for a complete geographic area. You can see an example of this in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. We're looking at an American Indian area, specifically the Navajo Nation Reservation and off-reservation trust land. So that area shaded in the bottom left is the complete Navajo Nation area. On data.census.gov, you can also narrow this a bit if you wanted the portion of that area that falls within a particular state. We also have an option for you to select that geography as well. And you can see that on the lower right-hand side of this screen where you're looking at the portion of the Navajo Nation Reservation area that's only within Arizona. So when you're accessing these within geographies, something like American Indian area within states, we have a lot of them. Our recommendation is to turn on the Show Summary Levels toggle. Hopefully you're familiar with this already, but we'll take a look at this in just a moment. The benefit of turning on the toggle is once you go through the steps to find the geographic area, you'll notice that there is a 3-digit code that identifies the type of geography that you're looking at. It's a great way to refer back to this information if you'd like to quickly reference the geography type you need in the future. You can also press Control-F while you're on the page and type in a keyword. You can see in this screenshot, I've typed in American Indian area. There are about 77 results for American Indian area in the title, so it's a lot of information to search through. But keep in mind that we do have some options to narrow this down a bit. So our recommendation when you're working with these within geographies is first to determine the type of data set that you want to access statistics for. Select your data set first, and then select your geography next. So you can see in this screenshot, we went through the steps to select the American Community Survey 5-year estimates detailed tables. And then when we select our geography and turn on the Show Summary Level toggle, geographic levels that are compatible with this data set are clickable, and all other geographies are grayed out and they're not clickable. It helps narrow down that list for you to find exactly what you need and want that's compatible with the data you're looking for. So let's take a look at this on the live site, working with the example that we kind of walked through on the slides. Let's pull up American Community Survey data, poverty totals for Navajo Nation, but we only want the Navajo Nation parts. So we want separate data for Navajo Nation in Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. Navigating to the site here, you'll want to use Google Chrome. It's the recommended browser. And I'm just going to go to data.census.gov. For today's training, we're going to be working exclusively through the advanced search. So I'll click the advanced search. And specifically, what I like to use are these filters. When you scroll down a little bit under Browse Filters on the left-hand side, hopefully you're familiar with them already. Conceptually, what you're looking for as you select a filter is a checkbox as a final selection. Any words and phrases without checkbox give you more detailed options to the right to choose from. So we wanted to find out the poverty data for Navajo Nation from the American Community Survey. Remember, when you're working with these within geographies, select your survey first. I click Surveys on the left. I'm presented with a number of different surveys to choose from that begin with ACS for American Community Survey. If you know you want ACS data but you're not sure which option to choose, I recommend starting with the ACS 5-year estimates detailed tables. This will give you a data set type that is compatible with the greatest number of geographies from the American Community Survey. So I'm going to choose that. Once you check the box, you'll notice it's been added to the screen at the bottom as a selected filter. Next, we'll go ahead and select our geography. We want American Indian area within state, so I click on geography. And the tip is to turn on the Show Summary Levels toggle. Because we're working for a complex geography, it just helps us see all of our available options in one view. You can already see there are some options that are being grayed out. And I'm going to go ahead and press Control F. This is optional. You could, of course, scroll through the information if it works better for you. But if you want to search the page, you can type in a keyword or phrase, American Indian area. And I'm just going to press Enter a couple times. You can already see the first option is grayed out, so I know don't even have to bother looking at that one. I get to Summary Level 250, American Indian area, Alaska Native area, Hawaiian homeland. So that looks to me like it's going to give me data for the full Navajo Nation geography. I want the portion within a state. So I'm looking for something that says state within the title. From here, I can, continue to press Enter or scroll through the list. I see tribal subdivision, tribal census tract, block group, and I don't have to scroll very far through these options. I see Summary Level 260 says state, American Indian area, Alaska Native area, Hawaiian homeland, dash state. So anytime you see the dash in another type of geography, that tells you you're going to get the part of a geography within another geography. So I go ahead and click on that 260 option. And remember, this is all being pulled from the application programming interface in real time. So it's looking for specifically items that are compatible with what we've selected. What we get to start with is a list of all of the different American Indian area reservations. I can scroll through the list if you'd like to load them. Or my favorite trick is to click the spyglass in the upper right if I have a lot of scrolling to do, and then I can really bypass that by typing in another keyword. It does look for an exact text match. It's searching only for the content in that one geography panel. So I type in Navajo and click where it says Navajo Nation Reservation and Off Reservation Trust Land. And then what it's doing is looking in the API for the available options. So it's going to give me an option to click for the Arizona part of this particular reservation, as well as New Mexico and Utah. So I click each 3 of these geographies. They've been added to the bottom as a selected filter. And then from here, you just add whatever topic you might want. We said we wanted poverty data, so I'll go through that process, clicking on topics, income and poverty, and then the checkbox for poverty. There may be more than one relevant option for you. Make your best guess, and if it doesn't give you the expected results, do another search with your second best guess. Here we can review. We have the data set, our 3 geographic areas, as well as the topic for poverty. Once you're happy with everything in your search, go ahead and click Search in the lower right. And then go ahead and choose Tables in the upper left. And now we can just start browsing through the results. If you did select the ACS 5-year as a data set, do know that you'll get the items returned in alphanumeric order for table ID. So you'll kind of see very long table titles to start with. These are things that give poverty status for particular groups of people, but with just a little bit of scrolling, you'll get to what you're probably interested in, which is poverty status for the total population. In this example, you could look at table B17001, poverty status in the past 12 months by sex, by age, or the universe for the population for whom poverty status is determined, and we can look at our results. I'm going to click on Customize Table just so we can see this across our full screen, and we'll start reading some of those results. We can see for Arizona, the Navajo Nation, there are 99,979 people for whom poverty status is determined, and out of that total, there are 39,709 people whose income is below the poverty level. We can compare that to the Navajo Nation that falls within New Mexico and see the value for that particular variable is 25,438. And in the Utah portion of the Navajo Nation reservation, it's 2,730. Now I'm going to click the U.S. Census logo in the upper left, and we'll move on to our next example in the slide. Our next scenario is working with geographies that have frequent name changes. So you could see this in a couple of different ways. Essentially, you'll see repeating or similar labels. One example on the left is a geography that has vintage-based names. You can see we've selected the state legislative district for Arizona, the upper chamber, which is the state Senate district. It gives us a checkbox to select the 2006 vintage, the 2010 vintage, all the way up to the 2018 vintage for that particular geography. Another example is metropolitan areas. Here I have the panel, and I typed in Phoenix, and you can see that Phoenix has went through some name changes over time from Phoenix Mesa Scottsdale, Phoenix Mesa Glendale, and Phoenix Mesa Chandler. These types of repeating labels are common in all of the example geographies listed on the right-hand side of the slide. It's not just state legislative districts or metropolitan areas. There are a few other instances as well. And when you're working with these geographies, a tip to help you get to the data and geography selection a little bit more easily and more accurately is to select the year of data that you're looking for first. So here we just looked at 2018 data on poverty. So if we select 2018 first in our search results, it will give us, when we go to the geography panel, only the list of geographies that are associated with data for year 2018. So let's actually take a look at this on the live site now. To make this a little more concrete, we'll pull up data for race for State Senate District 24 in Arizona. So navigating back, once again, we'll click on Advanced Search to get started. And in this case, I want to select the year as my first option. We'll click on Years, and we'll choose 2018. Check the box, make sure it's been added to the screen as a selected filter. Next, we'll choose our geography. And when we scroll through this, you'll see the state legislative district, upper chamber. One way you could select your geography. It'll prompt you to select a state, so we'll choose Arizona. And then we just scroll until we see 24. State Senate District 24. It's the 2018 geographic vintage in Arizona. We check the box, and it's been added to the screen, the bottom, as a selected filter. Now again, if we hadn't went through that step of selecting the year first and just clicked on State Legislative District Upper Chamber in Arizona, we would have seen all of these repeating labels. It would have taken a lot of scrolling to get where we needed to go. And then once we found State Senate District 24, we may not have known which one to click on. Choosing your data year first eliminates all of that, so you just get what you need in the geography selection panel. And then the last thing we'll do, just like before, is select our topic. We want race, so I'll choose topics, race and ethnicity, and then check the box at the top for race and ethnicity. It's been added to the bottom of our screen as a selected filter. We verify all three of our selections. Once we're happy, we click search in the lower right and tables in the upper left. And now it's just a matter of looking through your available table results to get what you want. We can kind of read the table for the first option and see it provides data specifically for the white alone population. And it gives not only race totals, but also breakouts by sex and age. If we're looking for something a little more high level, we maybe want to skip over some of those tables, skip over the median age tables, and just kind of go by table title. If you see something that you think might have the data, click on it on the left, and then you can view the information on the right-hand side of your screen. Here I've done that to find race, table B02001, and I can see it gives me totals for State Senate District 24 in Arizona for the major race groups. I did want to take a moment to show an alternative way that you could go about selecting geographies on the site, where you will want to make sure you narrow down your year, your geography type, and that is through the selection map. So we'll click on the U.S. Census logo in the upper left. I'm going to walk through the same exact sample, State Senate District 24, but through another selection method. So to get to the selection map, you can just click into the single search bar, press enter, and then you want to go to maps. By default, if you haven't specified anything already, it kind of fills in some basic state level information. The first step that you want to do while you're in the selection map is choose your year. Here we actually want 2018, so we'll keep it set at 2018. And then the geographies drop-down menu at the top, you can click and change that to whatever geographic layer you want to see on your map. Here I want to see and select State Legislative District, the upper chamber, so I'm going to choose that option. And now instead of just seeing state boundaries, I'm also seeing the boundaries for that area on my map. So I can zoom and scroll over to my area of interest, click Upper Chamber 24 in Arizona, and then click on Select in order to add it as a selected geography. So another alternative to going through the filter panels, once you've done that step, you can click into the single search bar and click on Advanced Search. You could add a race and ethnicity topic like we did before, and then click Search in the lower right. And notice you're getting the 2018 data that is compatible with that vintage for the geography. Moving on to our third scenario for geographic components. You can access census data for components of a geography and just take a look at this visually and kind of digest what we mean when we say components. Here I'm showing a map on the left-hand side of the screen that has all of the urban areas and urban clusters in Alabama. There are 73 different unique areas, and they're indicated as what's shown in red. Most people, or a lot of people, don't want data for each of those areas individually. They just want the combined look at what the population looks like living in urban areas in their state versus folks that live in rural areas. And that's what geographic components does. It sums up all 73 of those individual urban areas and urban clusters and allows you to see that data in one aggregate total. Other popular types of geographic components besides urban and rural are for metropolitan area, if you want to look at folks that live in metro areas versus not in metro areas, as well as some tribal areas as well. Those are the basic popular geographic components. There's certainly other ways that you can look at more detailed geographic components. We'll actually see those when we work through the list. And the way that you access them on data.census.gov is to First, select your geography of interest that you want data for. Here we've selected state. Then look at the top-hand side of your screen where it says Show Geographic Components. Go ahead and turn that toggle on, and you'll see the options that you're looking for. Most people don't want this information, or your basic users don't, so we hide this from the default view so that they can easily select the most common geographies, the total state, but it certainly is only a click away if you are interested in that. So let's take a look at this. First, we're going to show how you can go to the advanced search, turn on that toggle, and find the total population in urban and rural Alabama. So we started fresh. We click the census logo in the upper left. We click advanced search. And then we go ahead and select our geography. Again, we wanted urban and rural at the state level. So once we click on state, here's that toggle that says Show Geographic Components. We turn on the toggle. And actually notice before we turn on that toggle, it just gives us an option to get data for the entire state. We could check the box if we wanted that data for Alabama. We turn on the toggle, and it gives us more detailed options to choose from. So you see the primary tribal areas at the top in metropolitan or micropolitan statistical area, as well as many more detailed options that you could look at that particular geographic component. You'll have a section for not metropolitan area. Again, this is all alphabetical. And then what you're looking for, the most common geographic component would be Alabama rural. Most people want the simple label that doesn't have extra information. And then you want Alabama urban. Again, that simple label, Alabama rural, Alabama urban. Look at the bottom, make sure it's been added as a selected filter. And we want total population. You could go ahead and add in that topic. Choosing topics, populations and people, counts, estimates, and projections. And then we'll see population total. Once you're satisfied with your selections, you'll click Search in the lower right. And as you guessed, tables in the upper left. And then you can start looking through whatever you want. I see a table title that says Total Population on the left-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to click that second table result. And I can see here that for Alabama, there are 2,871,000 people that live in urban Alabama versus about 2,031,000 that live in the rural portion of that state. And actually, I want to show on the live site still the URL that's associated with this particular geography. So we chose Alabama as a starting point. There was quite a bit of scrolling to get where we needed to go. If you wanted to access information for another state, Georgia, Texas, you may have to do a lot more scrolling to get where it is that you're looking for. So one option that you could use to narrow that down is the first tip that we showed, select your data set first. That may narrow that list of results down for you, especially if you wanted American Community Survey data instead of decennial census. But another way that you can go about selecting and specifying geographies on the site is through the URL. If you're tuning into this webinar, you may already be familiar with geography ID. There is a component of the URL that serves to capture your geographic selection. So I'm going to show you how you can edit the URL, but just to show you how it works in general, you can copy from the address bar at any point. You can save it for later, share it with a colleague, paste it in a new tab, and then when they go and visit that URL, it's going to take them back to the exact same table view with your geographies already selected. So let's take a look at that a little bit more deeply here, going back to the slide deck. Specifically looking at the geography portion of the URL. So it begins with G equals. All of the different components of your URL are separated by question marks and ampersand signs. So we see it begins with ampersand G equals, and then we follow it until we see the next ampersand, and we know that's the end of the geography portion and is another component of the URL after that. What we can see are two geography IDs. They're separated by that underscore. The first one giving us data for Alabama urban. The second geography ID giving us data for Alabama rural. And the different component of that ID is broken out here in the middle of the slide. So the first three characters, 040, corresponds to the 3-digit summary level that we selected. Remember, we selected data at the state level. The next two characters refer to the 2-digit geographic variant. This is applicable for certain types of geographies that have vintages. In this case, it's just 00. The next two characters, 01, is for the 2-digit geographic component. This is what's saying that you want the urban portion of the state. Then you'll see US for United States, and then anything after the US is the geography ID. So this is the geography ID that matches the same GeoIDs from the Tiger line shapefiles. If you're wanting to know what a geography ID is for a particular area, I've included the link at the bottom of this slide that allows you to view some of that information or links to more resources to learn what those GeoIDs are. I've already visited that and found that the GeoID for Georgia is state code 13. So with that, going back to our example here where we have this pulled up from our previous search, if we'd like to get this information for Georgia, all we have to do is edit the URL for that particular GeoID. So what we'll do is look for both instances of state code 01, change it to 13, and then I'll go over to my next. Again, we're looking for the 01 that's after US, deleting it and change it to 13 and press enter. Now we can see we have this information for urban Georgia and rural Georgia. And you can use this method for any way that you'd like to select your geography, doing it based on the GeoIDs that we use on data.census.gov. It's not just for geographic components. Okay, so moving back to our fourth scenario before we start moving towards questions, collections of geographies and thematic mapping. We have a variety of checkboxes on data.census.gov that allow you to select multiple geographies in just one click. Things like all states in the U.S., all counties in California. As some examples, we've listed all of the available collections here on this slide. They're pretty straightforward and easy to use. If they're available, they're at the top of the filter panel for your geography selection. What can be more tricky is when there is a collection that's only available for certain data sets, or if your collection isn't available, in some cases you may be able to use lower level geography collections as a workaround in order to create something equivalent to the collection that you're working for. So we can see an example of that here for all block groups in Washington. There is a checkbox on the site that allows you to select all block groups in Washington state. However, that checkbox is compatible with decennial census data sets only. We have not yet completed the work to enable that for American Community Survey. What this means is that if you try to use that checkbox, ACS data tables will give you a download failed error message. As a workaround, though, you could use the lower level county selections and use those checkboxes that allow you to get data for all block groups in each of Washington's 39 counties, and then access and download your ACS data tables from there. The good news is we've put some of these commonly requested data or geography collection links together for you, including those at the block group level. So you don't have to do all of those clicks yourself. We've already done it for you, and you can just pull them from one of our FAQs. So putting that FAQ link that we shared here with the slides, you will get the links to click on your state. And for this final example, I just want to look at data for Vermont. So I'm going to map out median age for Vermont, all block groups in Vermont. So I see Vermont, I'll go ahead and click that. And this takes me to data.census.gov. I can see there's some filters at the bottom, and it's giving me data geography selection for all block groups within each of the 14 counties in Vermont. Once we've done that, we can go ahead and add our topic. We'll click Topics, Populations and People, and Age and Sex. Once we're happy, we run our search in the lower right and click Tables in the upper left. So when you want to map out this data, the first step is to find a table that contains the information that you're looking for. And the reason that you want to find that table first is our maps are based on the table. So you can choose to map out any particular value that's in a table. It's just a matter of finding which table contains that estimate. Sometimes the table title itself isn't going to be helpful enough for you to go off of. In this case, it looks very promising. Once we click on median age by sex, that table will in fact contain median age data that we're interested in, but we can kind of verify that here on our screen. So the table will show us for the total population, median age for this first block group is 52.4. It also gives us data for median age broken out by male and female if we were interested in that. Once we know that that table has our information, go ahead and click on Maps in the upper left in order to map that out on the site. You'll also want to be sure to click on the table title that contains the data value you want to map out. Here we click on median age by sex. And now it's pulling from the API and trying to create this map in real time. So we'll give it a moment to pull the data. That was what that loading indicator was. And you do have to zoom in a bit in order for the map to populate for certain smaller geographic layers. So now that we've zoomed in, we can see on our map for Vermont, data for median age for all the different block groups. You can confirm the data variable selection by clicking data variable at the top. This was the very first line from our table, median age for the total population, which is what we wanted, but we do have options to choose other types of data variables from that particular table. I'm going to leave it at the defaults. And if you want to click on an individual block group, you can click on the map and see for this particular block group, 57.5 is the median age, and it's block group 1. A couple other things you can do with the map is click on Customize Map in the upper right. There's an option to view table, and this gives you that one single estimate that you chose to map out. You can choose to sort this in ascending or descending order. You can also go to the full table. Here I'm going to click that button and just show you one last thing on the site, which is the download. It's pretty intuitive to go through the download process. You look for that download button, you choose the vintage, and you proceed through the process, clicking download, let it load up to 100%, and click download now, and then you open up that zip file. You'll be using Google Chrome, so you'll click in the lower left in order to open that. And it's going to give us a set of 3 files to choose from. The one that we'll want to look for is the file that has data with overlays in the naming convention. It's the first option to choose from, and then we just double-click that in order to open up the file. This is a great flat file format if you wanted to map sort, or manipulate the information on your own using other software outside of the site, this is going to be the best file format for you. It has the geography ID, the geography name, and as you follow across a particular row, you'll see all of the nice estimates that you saw in the table display on data.census.gov without any special formatting or indentation, but in a very good format for you to work with. So let's go ahead and go through some common questions and definitely give you all some time to ask your own. As it relates to geography, some common questions that we get in our user support for data.census.gov, one of those is, how can I get a list of geography relationships? So we have a lot of geographies that are nested neatly. We also have some geographies that are not nested neatly, and sometimes you may want a list. For instance, I was helping a data user who wanted to know, what are the census tracts in my city in California of Palo Alto? One way that you could get this information is through the Mabel GeoCore. We also have some relationship files through the U.S. Census Bureau with the links on the left. And what this would give you is a list of all of a particular geography within another geography. In this case, a list of all of the census tracts within each city in California. Now, those census tracts may be fully within the city or just partially within the city. So going hand in hand with that, some folks may also be interested in how they can look at this visually. So once I got a list of all of those census tracts in Palo Alto, you can go through the process on the Tiger Web mapping application. It allows you to turn on more than one layer at a time. Here I'm showing a screenshot where I've turned on layer for census tract and for place. You can see incorporated place is in red and the census tract boundaries are in green. So some of those census tracts in my list for Palo Alto may be fully within the city, and some of them may be only partially within the city. That may help me determine if I want to include those in my analysis or exclude them. Another common question we get from geographers that want to map, how can I download shapefiles? We don't have those yet on data.census.gov, but there is a handy geography resource, this web interface for TigerLine shapefiles that gives you access to common geographic types. Access to all geographic types is available through the FTP site. Links are included in this slide. We showed you the data download on data.census.gov. When you're working with the download information, you probably are trying to match up the GeoID with what's provided in the GeoID from TigerLine shapefiles. There is some extra information in the data.census.gov GeoID, but you may not need that in order to match up. So what you want to make that match is all of the information after US. If you visit the FAQ link at the bottom, it gives you a nice handy Excel formula where you can parse out that information in order to make your match. We also get lots of folks asking, how do I get data for all census tracts in the US? This is another instance where you want to use those lower level geography collections in order to access the information. This is a quick link that we're showing on screen that gives you data for all census tracts in each state, DC, and Puerto Rico. We also get lots of folks asking, how do I access data for zip codes? Please remember to use zip code tabulation areas for demographic information on people housing through the American Community Survey and Decennial Census. You only want to use the 5-digit zip codes if you're accessing data on the businesses from our economic surveys and programs. And finally, we are working in the early stages towards adding search by address on data.census.gov. In the meantime, you'll want to use the Census Bureau's geocoder in order to find a list of geographies that are associated with a specific address, and then go to our site and select that geography in the advanced search. Things like building additional functionality for address search are all based on your feedback. We continue to improve the site based on your comments. Please email us at cedfi.feedback@census.gov on how we can make the site work better for you. And we also wanted to take questions that you all have right now. Operator, can you open it up for questions?
Certainly, and at this time, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1. Please unmute your phone and record your name clearly when prompted. Once again, that is *1 if you'd like to ask a question, and you will be allowed one question and one follow-up. One moment, please, while the questions come through.
Great, thank you. And as we're waiting for questions to come through, again, remember you need to be dialed in order to ask that question over the line rather than using the computer audio. So if you haven't joined by phone and you want to ask that question, feel free to do so. Reminder is that we have a variety of educational materials available to you to learn more. What we focused on today was showing you how to select complex geographies on our site. If you're looking for a basic overview of data.census.gov, please visit the link in the upper left. We have resources in the form of recorded webinars, short videos, answers to your FAQs, and PDFs with step-by-step instructions. Operator, do we have questions queued up at this time?
I do. Our first question today is from Ji-Hong McDermott.
Hello, hi. This is Ji-Hong McDermott. I just have a, could you show me how to select or download all the places within County of Riverside? I tried before. I only do all the places within California, just too much. And I want to narrow down, filter one more, County of Riverside. Could you show me how to do that? Maybe other county people like to learn too.
No, that's a great question. That's actually a situation where we do not have a checkbox that allows us to select all places in a county in a single click. So the workaround would be to download data for all places in California and then pull out the geographies that you actually need. One way to reference that, if you don't have that information, with through the relationship files or the Mabl GeoCourse system. And then we would encourage you, we can of course take the feedback that we're getting through the webinar back to our team, but this is also a great example of things that we like to hear and have submitted to us through cedsi.feedback@census.gov.
Oh, okay. So on the website, so far we couldn't be able to do that, right?
Not to that level of being narrowed. It would just be all places in a state, right?
Like, yeah, it's just huge. Maybe I will get in touch with you to learn what's the workaround later. I didn't quite get it, I have to, I guess a different way, right? It's just so many places in California, after that, it take a lot of what's the systematically quick batch. I can, put all the places within County of Riverside. I just like to learn that. Maybe I will email you later on. You can teach us how to do that.
Absolutely. We can help you further by emailing.
Thank you. Our next question is from Tricia Dirks.
I'm Patricia Dirks, and my question is,
yes,
is it possible to print the map once it's created?
That's a great question. So on the site, you do have the option to press Control-P. We haven't really went through the work to completely enable this for our maps, but it does look like it gives you a little bit of basic output. So know that it hasn't been officially developed to work specifically for maps. However, there is the option to press Control-P, and if what you're getting meets your needs now, we would be glad to hear that, but if not, and there's ways that we can make the output work better, know that we haven't developed it officially, but you could also tell us any specific ways we could improve it by emailing cedsi.feedback@census.gov.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our next question is from Jaya.
Hello. My question is, are various replicates available on the mapping feature of the data.census.gov? I ask this because I believe there are certain topics and tables that are not available through the FTP server, but they are available through the mapping feature.
That's a great question. So my understanding of variance replicate estimates is that it's a set of detailed tables from the American Community Survey, and you use those if you want to aggregate data and get the exact margin of error rather than an approximated margin of error. Those files are only available on the FTP site. They are not available on the mapping feature at this time.
Is there like a reason why some tables are not available on the FTP server?
So those tables, to be clear, are on the FTP. They're not on data.census.gov. Those just have never been released on any particular platform outside of the FTP. If you wanted more reasoning behind that, my recommendation would be to reach out to the data providers, and their information is acso.users.support@census.gov.
Thank you. And our next question is from Ruth Verande.
Yes, Anthony, I'm going to ask you about South Carolina and the rural farming areas. On your map, when you go to it, it will actually show where the farm's located and count the people at that farm, or in a rural area. I don't know how to, I'm trying to say, is it exactly that person was counted in that farm, or all farms at that zip code in the rural area?
That's a great question. I am not familiar offhand with rural farm geography, but we do have a geographer on the line. Artemis, are you able to provide any insight into that answer, or is this something that would be best that we could work with her through email?
Yeah, that's not actually a geography type of question. I mean, in terms of the farms, I don't know. I personally didn't think we would have anything that detailed of a level for privacy reasons. So it just depends on what geography you choose on how you're going to get your count, right? So if you choose the Dakota tabulation area, then that would be the count. So it depends on what geography have you chosen when you get that information.
I see. So zip code is a better way to count than try to count rural areas. And then when it focuses in on the map, it'll be that zip code if there was a farm there.
Right. So, I mean, you can choose any type of geography if you're looking for, people, farms. I'm not sure how that's, so I'm not a demographer, so I'm not sure how that's counted. I would assume farmers are counted under the occupation versus counting people on a farm. But
I think there's a GeoComponent rural farm. If you could email your question to us, we could better assist at sedfi.feedback.gov.
Right. That way, you guys could, channel it to the right person who might know that more effectively. Sorry, I wasn't able to help.
Thank you. And I am showing no further questions at this time.
Okay, well, we did have a couple of other things, and if you want to still queue up for questions. But one other note is that we do have data dissemination specialists that are located throughout the country at 1-844-ASK-DATA or census.askdata@census.gov. These are data dissemination experts that can provide free trainings, local trainings to you. You can request this information by contacting them for more resources. Census.gov/academy is also the centralized training hub for the Census Bureau. So if you'd like to learn more training and resources, not necessarily specifically related to data.census.gov, but to any survey, program, or topic, we definitely encourage you to check out that resource. And of course, we would encourage you to fill out our evaluation. We always work to make these webinars useful for you, and your feedback is important. Operator, still no questions queued up?
I am showing no further questions, sir.
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate you all tuning in today. If you have anything else, feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference. You may disconnect at this time.